Hey, so what's shaking, everyone? So today I want to talk about building a studio. Now, unless you happen to have pud loads of money, building a studio is going to take you months or years depending on the type of studio that you want to build. But in order to get our studios from point A, which is where they are now, to point B, which is where we want them to be, we have to have some idea of what and where point B even is, otherwise we're just going to be spinning our wheels and wasting money. So today I want to help you do some long-term planning to help you get your studio where you want it to be. So let's get right into it. Alright, so the first thing that we have to figure out is what the purpose of our studio even is. Now, there are going to be certain things that every studio is going to have and need. But beyond that, depending on what the studio is used for, what that studio needs can vary greatly. Like somebody who produces EDM music is going to have vastly different studio needs than somebody who uses their studio to record and produce podcasts. The same thing could be said of somebody who does voiceover work in their home studio versus somebody who scores to picture. So this is why the first step is to figure out what the purpose of your studio is. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is try to get a clear picture of what the ideal studio for you looks like in your head. Do you just need one small room? Maybe you want a mixing room and a tracking room. Maybe you also need an area to store instruments or do repairs on them. Everyone's studio needs are going to be vastly different. So once you've got a good idea in your head of what your ideal studio would be, now we want to compare it to your current studio. And from this, we can figure out what about our current studio is working, what could use some improvement, and where it doesn't work at all or where we're lacking maybe certain equipment or whatever. And this is where we're going to get into making a gear list. Okay, so for the gear list, now this is just how mine's set up, so you can set yours up however it's going to work for you. But mine's set up in a 3-part system, and it kind of works like a filter. So the first part of the list is just general studio needs. This part of the list would contain items that your studio needs, but it's far enough down the road that there's really no point putting much thought into it. Okay, like so for an example, maybe you want to start recording real drums, but you currently live in an apartment. So you know you're going to need drum mics, you're going to need mic stands, you're going to need cables, and an interface that can handle enough drum mics so you can record your drums. So you just jot those down in that first part of the list. Because there's no point thinking much more beyond that, because until you're out of the apartment, you can't record drums anyway. Now the second part of this list is gear we're actually starting to put some consideration into. Now let's say you're the same person who's living in the apartment, and you want to record drums, but maybe now you're starting to shop for a house. So at this point, you know it won't be too much longer before you can actually set up a drum kit, set up mics, and be able to record it without the cops or the landlord banging on the door. FBI, open up! So because of this, now you're starting to research different drum mics. So now in the second part of this list, you can start making notes of drum mics that you're considering buying. Maybe you've got 2 or 3 different kick drum mics you're interested in, or maybe a few different mics that you can use for toms and snares. You'd put them on this part of the list. Now the third part of the list, which also has a bonus effect, which we'll get into in a minute, this is the list of the gear you plan to absolutely buy. So again, sticking with our apartment drummer who just bought a house, they've narrowed down the exact drum mics that they want to buy, and now it's just a matter of either going to the store and picking them up, or maybe it's just going to take them a few months to save up the money to actually go purchase them. Now the bonus part to this part of the list is gas. Oh god, we all get gas. And sometimes we get it so bad our only option is to either go buy some gear or gnaw our hands down until they're nubs. I'm a monster! So instead of just running down to the local guitar store and then buying something impulsively that might end up just collecting dust that you never end up using, but you just bought it just to scratch a bloody itch, instead of doing that, buy something off this part of your list. Because then A, you've scratched the itch of having gas and just needing to buy a new piece of gear, but you've also bought a piece of gear that's on your list that's going to help you get your studio closer to where you want it to be. Ha 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 ha. And that's going to bring us to the last part of planning our studio, and that's going to get into the vibe of your studio, which I'm also going to tie in with acoustic treatment, which will make sense. We'll get to that. Now the aesthetics of your studio are super important, probably more important than most people would think. When you walk into your studio space, the room itself should be inspiring. You should want to be in the room. If you walk in the room and you feel like you're about to get a root canal, your room is wrong. So you want to figure out what sort of aesthetic or vibe you want your space to have. Like, do you want it to be bright and colorful? Maybe you want to have a wall of Transformers or Star Wars figures. Do you want to fill the studio space with smart lights so you can change the brightness or the color of the lights in a moment's notice to set a mood? Or maybe you want your studio to be a little more cleaner and on the corporate looking side of things. Whatever works for you. The point is, you want the room to feel inspiring on its own. Why? Because it's hard to be creative in a room that you can't stand being in. And now this is where acoustic treatment comes into play. Why? Because unless you're building it into the walls and they're going to be wrapped in fabric, your acoustic treatment's going to be visible. So when it comes to any acoustic panels you might be putting up, maybe you want to hide them to some degree, but you can't put them in the wall. So maybe you want to make them the same color as the wall. Or maybe you'll mix and match the colors of them, and each one's a different color just to give a bit of a unique vibe. Or maybe you find a cool pattern of fabric and you wrap your acoustic panels in that, again, just to enhance the vibe in the room. Same could be said of diffusers if you need diffusers. Do you buy or build diffuser panels? Do you just set up a big bookshelf filled with random books and Star Trooper helmets? Or maybe you do a combination of the two? Because either way, you're going to need acoustic treatment. So you're going to want to figure out whether you want to hide it or use it to enhance the feeling in the room. So I hope this video has given you some ideas to think about to hopefully take your studio from where it currently is to where you want it to be. And as always, if you have any comments or questions, just leave them down below. Like and subscribe if you want to. And on that note, I've been Mr. Jeff, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So take it easy.